You're listening to an BayaBooks podcast.
Welcome to Parenting and Bonding with Children's Books. Each Tuesday in our Facebook community, we go live to chat with a children's book author about the magic of books. Each book and author was chosen with you and your children in mind. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's Author Spotlight. Hello, we are live. As you know, my name is Quinn, and I'm excited to be here. This is the Parenting and Bonding with Children's Books podcast. It's the third episode of our live video podcast, and I'm so excited about that. Those of you in our group, you watch it live, and then we send it over to YouTube and your favorite place to podcast to try to reach as many parents as possible. We're live so we can take question and answer with the author that we are spotlighting today. So our message is simple. Books are magical. They transform homes and they can help strengthen the bonds with our kiddos. So here on this podcast, we are joined by the authors that make the magic happen to find out the true intention behind the books. We want to leave you all empowered to up your game with story time. So tonight, we are joined by the author behind the magic of BayaBooks. Welcome, PeTika Tave.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
So I'm so happy that you are here. And it's funny the way that I came across your books, right?
Yeah.
Because you joined the group and you let the group know about your books. And I went to the site and I think the first thing I saw was the books, but then I saw you had done an interview with a local news station.
Yes.
Okay. And I watched that and I was just like, I need these books.
Yes.
I said, I need these books because it's exactly the message, one of many that I'm trying to make sure that I get in with my son. So,
wonderful.
PeTika, tell us a little bit about yourself or a lot of it.
Well, where do I start? Oh, that is the key there. Well, this is my 15th year. I don't know if it's 15 or 16, somewhere in there, teaching. Okay. I'm a middle school educator. I'm a mom of two. So I have a high school senior and an elementary school senior. And so I just try to live life to its fullest every day and empower kids, the future generations to be their best and to appreciate who they are just the way they are.
Wonderful. And I see that because another interview.
I'm on a roll here.
Get this message out here whichever way you need to. But I recently saw, and for everybody in the group, PeTika, as in was an English course?
I'm an English teacher, yes.
You're an English
middle school, 7th grade.
Okay. And so there was a young man in one of your classes. And now how many years later?
I'm thinking it's about 10. I'm not quite sure.
Okay.
He was in my first crop of students.
Okay. Oh, he was in your first crop of students.
Right. He was somewhere within the first 5 years, somewhere in there. But I'm super proud of him. So excited for him. I'll let you tell the story. I'm not sure where you were going with that, but
yeah, I'm kind of giving everybody bits and pieces. So from what I watched, it looked like he had earned Teacher of the Year for his district.
He's Teacher of the Year for his school, and this is his second year in a row, which is unheard of. Wow. And so in our district, we have 170 plus schools. Mm-hmm. And so out of those 170 Teachers of the Year, he got whittled down to the top 15. Okay. And now he's in the top 5 to become the Teacher of the Year for the entire school district.
That is wonderful. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I can see, and, I'm hoping if we can get the link after, or I'll find it again on Facebook to post it here, just the interview that they had. And I was telling my mom, right? I said, like, look of like shock and joy and excitement on your face, like all at the same time, as he was as he was telling you, yeah, and you inspired me to write, and you were like,
did I give too much away from my facial expressions?
But now it makes sense because you said he was in your first like crop of students, and so I can imagine that I guess as teachers, like you never know what kind of impression or how you're affecting the students that, that come across your path, that sit in your classrooms. But in your first few years as a teacher, it's even harder to imagine. So I'm sure like you just look blown away to me, and it was such a beautiful thing.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. And because I'm not a college of education graduate.
Okay.
So my first few years of teaching, I was coming from the corporate setting. I didn't know what I was doing or get myself into, but I knew that there were certain gems, certain what I call nuggets of knowledge that I wanted to instill in every student that walked into my classroom. And if you notice in the interview when I said I have some stories, and he concurred. We won't talk about those stories, but apparently it worked, and he is doing a phenomenal job, and I'm so proud of him.
Yes, that was wonderful. And yeah, that when he would talked about the stories and you said, Miss Tave was a little, and he said, yeah, you said, did you just agree with me?
Yes.
Oh, you can tell I watched it like, more than once. It was really, it was really good. No, but
thank you.
So I was going to ask you something else, but you walked into teaching from corporate. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Well, so I had my son my final year of college. I came home with a degree and a baby. So the necessity for having a good paying job that I believed in and that was, that contributed to my core values was important to me. And so I went through a few jobs within that first year because thing really aligned with what I wanted for me and my son. Yes. And so teaching just kind of fell into my lap, and I went for it. And that first school I taught at, they had gone through 4 teachers before they got to me in 6 weeks. And I heard they were going to get rid of me to see if they could not learn for the entire school year by getting rid of the teachers. And I wasn't going to let that happen. So I started teaching. I enjoyed it. And it gave me the time I needed to spend with my son. Being a single parent and making sure I was there for him was super important. And, a lot of people say, oh, you get summers off and this off. No, we don't. We just don't get paid for that time that we are not in class. But it really allowed me to be present for him. And like, I know you promote books heavily, and I do the same for my children in terms of I have access. I give them access to whatever they need. I remember trips to the library for my son and everything. And so teaching allowed me to go to school with him and come home with him and not have to work some ungodly hours and not be there for because we only get one time to witness them being children. And I want to cherish every moment of that.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. A few things you said that I want to talk about is number one, you said there are a few gems that you wanted for every student to leave with. For me as well, my mother from a very young age, the freedom that she gave me to go to the library by myself was everything for me. It, started my love for literacy, my love for reading and, everything. But knowing when I had a son and, I'm a single mom as well, he's 6. And as a single mom, you always feel like you're not enough. So I was always driving at what do I want him to know when he goes to school and he's not around me? What do I want him to know or be able to exhibit, when I'm not around? And I started to say, I want him to, be kind. I want him to be compassionate. I want him to be this. I want him to be that. And so every day of the week I had a theme. And like Monday was kindness. And I would say, I'm going to really drive home kindness today because I know he might not remember these things every day, but somewhere down the line, he'll look back and he said, my mom said this about kindness and that's what I need to be. So that's how I started to use books as tools to really drive home the themes that I was focused on with him. So But
Right.
this is it's not about me. So your books, right? And I have both of them here.
Oh, no, great. That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And I even have little bookmarks in the one because there's a couple things that I, want to talk about in the books tonight. But so, yeah, I have bookmarks in them. So tell us, I read your bio. Tell us about your life story, how this came to be. And they started out as poems, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So they started off as poems, and to really understand the premise behind the book, you have to understand my backstory. So I've always been tall and heavy. Okay. And at the age of 13, I reached 300 pounds, and I was also 6 feet. That was in middle school. And then, so from that, I can remember back as far as I remember my doctor saying she needs to go on a diet. And then my brothers and sisters are eating one thing, and I'm having to eat something else because I'm the youngest of a family of 6 children. And so my mom, she tried her absolute best. She would eat the healthy fish with me or the baked chicken while they got the fried chicken and the fried catfish. And so it was just, something that I grew up with. And somewhere along the way between college and in the high school graduation and college, I ballooned up to 427 pounds. And so I was 22 at 427. And I realized that my self-confidence, my self-worth was not where it needed to be. And I had to make a decision because at the age of 22, I was also pregnant with my son, which I didn't even know was possible, but because of my size. Okay. And so I had to make a choice. I had to make a choice to continue to eat my way to death or to be present for my child. And so when I found out, so I lost over 200 pounds. I was a Weight Watchers 2006 Inspiring Stories of the Year winner. And so I really enjoyed that experience. I got some stories now. And so I really enjoyed that experience. You can Google it. There you go. And so then I lost all that weight, was very, I still struggled a bit because I didn't know how to handle that new me. The new me, because mentally I still wasn't where I needed to be. But eventually I trudged along, and then I found out I was having my daughter. And when I found out I was having her, I knew I didn't want her to struggle the way that I struggled throughout my childhood, throughout teenagehood, throughout my young adulthood. I wanted to make sure that she had the tools to be confident and proud of who she was, no matter how she looked, no matter the size of her waist, no matter her hair color, hair texture, whatever. She needed to know that she was enough. And so while I was carrying her, I just wrote a bunch of poems to her. And it was my full intent to just give the poems to her and say, this is what I was feeling while you were, developing and before you were born. And so the idea came to turn it into a book of poems. Well, that didn't shop very well. And so I kind of put it on the shelf. In fact, for 10 years, I just let it sit. Until one day, a couple people kind of showed me what they had. And my mentor, she said, look, I publish my books. I'm going to tell you how to get yours out there. One thing led to another. And I actually ended up saying, well, let's not publish a book of poems. Let's publish each poem as a book and empower young girls throughout their life story, because some of them apply at different age groups a little bit differently. And so that's how Beautiful As You Are was born. And I'm really proud of it. And basically from Beautiful As You Are, I got some notoriety. I don't even think you saw the first interview because that was with Beautiful. But then I got so much feedback from it. They were like, well, this is for girls. What about boys? I said, well, it's for girls because of the reason why I wrote it. But then I made it applicable to boys, and that's what Brilliant As You Are came about. And that was the interview you saw in September. So it's just my way of just letting people, and it's so funny because I was in another group recently and I saw a woman, a grown woman, and she was saying, I don't feel like I'm enough. I don't feel like as a woman, I'm good enough, or I look good, or I meet society standards. And it just hurt my heart because that she was publishing this on Facebook, and it touched me because I said, she needs my book, even as an adult, because what she was hurting from was trying to fit society's expectations of what beauty and what success is. And that's not for everybody. And we just have to learn to love ourselves. I'm 6 feet tall. Who knew? So imagine 6 feet, 427 pounds, pregnant in 22. Society was not kind to me. But I had to find a way to love me just the way I am.
Wow. That's so much. Okay, first, no, I did not see the first interview, but now I want to see it. And second, second, Facebook being as intrusive as it is, I saw that in that group because we're both in that group. Yes.
Okay.
And I was like, that felt good for me to see you reach out. And I was so ecstatic to see you offer her your children's book because I tell people all the time, I'm 30 and I still read children's books.
Mm-hmm. They're pretty good, aren't they? The messages are what we need.
Yes, the messages are what we need. And, when we're in the library or I'm purchasing books and things like that, there are often books that I wouldn't read, to Aiden because I don't think that he will, it wouldn't engage him, but that, they're for me. And so I hope that, she reads your book and she really feels something from it because they really are beautiful poems. And let me just real quick. So this one, Brilliant As You Are, I ordered both of the books together, but this is the one I read first, of course, to my son. The illustrations are beautiful. Who was your illustrator, by the way?
His name is Vladimir Sabu.
Okay. All right. They're really beautiful books, but what you mentioned, let me see. You mind if I read a page?
Oh, no, sure. Hey, I have the whole thing online. So the animated version.
I always like to add.
Thank you very much.
No problem. So this first page, and this was excellent for Aiden to see, little boy on the couch looking up at a superhero because, he loves superheroes. We can watch Marvel all day and he often wants to emulate them and think about, what powers, he wants and how he can be more like them. And the page says, you are not the pictures in a magazine or the buffed up people on a TV screen, but you are a prince created with love, and you are the star of the man that you will become. And I love that, and for many reasons. But number one is kids are home, dealing with COVID and quarantine. One of the main things that they're missing, right, is being around their peers if they're virtual schooling. And so they are consuming lots of media. Kids are more often getting on YouTube and can get around, by themselves. My son is 6 and, he knows how to use the phone just as well as I do.
Exactly.
And
if not better.
Yeah. And we're avid readers, but he still, finds time to get on, media. And it's important for them to know you don't need to compare yourself, to what you see on TV. And so you're a teacher. In the first interview that I saw, you spoke about self-esteem and confidence and what that looks like inside of the school.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, the age group that I teach is very vulnerable. They're still trying to figure out who they are. 6th graders are just leaving elementary school. They're not sure. And the physical changes are profound as well. We can always tell the 6th graders, they're little. By the time they're 8th graders heading off to high school, they look like adults, tiny adults. So and that's why in the past they used to have the 6th grade centers to kind of separate them. But when you look at that dynamic, you have students that were 10, 11 years old in 5th grade, and they were the seniors of elementary. And now they're the babies of middle school, and they see these grown looking 8th graders, and they want to kind of assimilate, fit in. And so they compromise, and not all of them, but I've seen it all too often. They compromise who they are and their core values of the family and their core teachings and beings so that they can fit in. And sometimes you hear people joke, oh, that's so-and-so. Well, they don't act like that in my classroom, but it's really true. I have had numerous instances where I have seen children in public. I'm like, well, what do you know? You can't sit down and be quiet. And it's really touching, because I'm that teacher that'll say, now I know your mama would not appreciate seeing you act like this in my class first. So we're going to stop this right now. And, they kind of buck up and, sit straight. And then they, I think I carry a different presence because especially in my older school, in my old school, I look like mom. I talk like mom. And so Miss Tave's not playing. I think that's why Mr. Ford was like, yeah, boy. But then they get into different environments and you just don't know who this child becomes. And I have learned, parents, if you're listening, please don't ever say what your child will not do. Because they will prove you a liar when they step into that school room, them walls, etc. You're like, well, no, little Susie wouldn't. Oh, yes, Susie did. Okay. And so I have learned that with my own experience. I will not vouch for my children, and I will not say what they will or won't do because you don't know. And that peer pressure is so powerful. There are numerous studies that show that at that age, that tender age, especially 7th grade, students are more influenced by their peers than their families. And you got to think about it. How many hours a day do they spend in the school building? But on ordinary times versus quality time with the family during the week. And if you're working, typically we're in school 7.5 hours. And how much time after school are you really engaging with them, to make sure that they're still upholding what you taught them as a kid and things of that nature? Because in middle school, they have after school activities and they stay busy with their friends. And it can get really eye-opening at some point. And it breaks my heart sometimes because, students come from very loving and supportive homes, and then they get around their friends and it's a totally different story. And so we have to build them up to know, hey, you don't have to fit in with this crowd. If they can't accept and love you the way you are, then go find someone that does.
But, it takes, my message is always, through books, right? And so
Right.
those messages, like when you're a busy parent or a single parent, and it's been a long day and you often can't find the words that you need in order to speak to your children at the level that you need to. Books can do that for us. And that's one of the things that PeTika's book does so well, is to reinforce those themes that, it's okay to be different. You are loved. You are special. You are unique. And, a lot of times we stop at the book, but a book is a tool because of the conversation, because of the dialogue that it creates with our children. And that dialogue that comes after reading a book like this or while reading a book like this is as important as the words themselves.
Exactly.
But the book as a tool gives us what we need in order to start that dialogue with our children. I was looking before we got on, and y'all know I like to do a little research before we get on to these. These, right? Because we were talking about self-esteem, and I was on healthychildren.org, and it was just talking about some of the things that parents can do in order to make sure that we're building up a healthy self-esteem in our children, even with the limited amount of time, right? Mm-hmm. Because starting to build self-esteem starts from when our kids are babies, right? And it's them feeling loved, having positive interaction with their parents and their family that starts that process of building a solid, self-esteem. And so right here, where's this thing? Let me get this. Reinforcing that they are loved. That's the tool. That's PeTika's book. Reinforcing that they are loved and they are special and that they're unique. That's the first step and the first way to help build that positive self-esteem. Listening to your child's thoughts. So using the book as a tool to ask them questions, open-ended questions like PeTika's book does so well. Of the book, she gives y'all the questions. She gives you the questions, wonderful open-ended questions that can help get into the mind of your child. The best conversations that I have with Aiden, and my most powerful one to date, was on bullying. We read a book on bullying, and I asked him an open-ended question around that, and I found out some information, something that was happening in school, but it came from using a book as a tool, and it got him talking. So when you ask them these open-ended questions, listen to them, listen to their thoughts, and accept their unpleasant feelings that they may have.
That's important.
And help them cope. Don't just, leave them in the air. Help them cope, even if you don't have the answer in the moment. That's the important thing there. So, PeTika, what did you want to say?
Well, I wanted to kind of interject because I know a lot of times in middle school, I hear a lot of parents say, well, I'm trying to loosen the reins and let them find themselves and stuff. But even at that age, 6, 7, and 8, they really want to talk to their parents. They just don't know how. And so what you're saying, starting those conversations young, will allow you to continue those conversations throughout their childhood and teenagehood and adulthood, because sometimes they want to speak, but they're afraid. And then also when they say, like you said, their unpleasant feelings, maybe accept them as they are. Don't try to project, interject, or reroute their thinking necessarily, but hear them out. And maybe it's not a solution. Maybe you ask probing questions to kind of help them realize the solution, because we want them to grow as individuals, but we also want them to learn along the way themselves, to give them that tool that they need to survive in an unkind world. So all of that, and please don't accept, how was school today? Fine. What was good about it? Nothing. Or what was the best thing of your day? Lunch. Ask more probing questions. Well, what made school fine? Or what was your favorite moment? What was your least favorite moment? Kind of keep going along and try to draw that out of them. They'll appreciate it as they get older.
Thank you. Tell us, what was your intention? I know that, your inspiration was your daughter, right?
Yes.
But when you decided to release these as a book, what message did you want to reach parents and their children?
I wanted parents to tell their children, to teach their children that you don't have to be what everyone wants you to be. Just be yourself. And love and success and confidence will find you, will be a part of you. And you don't ever have to compare yourself to others or question your value, your worth, or give people the space and the time to break it down for you. Because you will run into some people that present themselves as your friend, as your ally. And whether intentionally or inadvertently, they can tear you down if you don't have a strong self-worth and self-belief. And I wanted parents to know that their children need that, and that the children need to know that everybody has a gift, no matter what you look like, no matter what you have or don't have in terms of finances or physical appearances. People want to do this and do that. You are great just the way you are. Just learn to embrace that, and you'll have a much happier life.
Wonderful. Thank you. There was another page, and then we'll see that this is my favorite line. I just want to share that with you on this page. First of all, the illustration is beautiful, right?
Thank you.
And then this line says, and I posted in the group, know that you are special and listen to nothing else, nothing less. I'm sorry. Know that you are special and listen to nothing less. I love this so much. I had to make a graphic out of it. It was
beautiful. I was like, whoa, she is wonderful. Did she say that? I was like, wait, that was my line. That was good though. I was like, whoa, girl, that is awesome.
Goodness, that was just so good. And, listen to nothing less, because you will hear, like you said, our kids are in our homes and we tell them, you're special, you're this and you're that, but they are going to hear other things.
No, you're not.
Negative things. You're going to hear them, but that doesn't mean that you have to adapt them to your life and to who you are. So,
or accept them.
Yes, accept them. So is there anything else on your heart to share about your books?
Well, I love that you asked what was my intent. And really, I just want to spread the message of just loving yourself, and I just hope that anybody that reads them with their children or share it with a neighbor or somebody, because everyone may not have a child that fits this age group, but just have those conversations with kids, adults, anybody. If you see someone feeling down or questioning themselves, ask them questions and like, hey, look, you're beautiful. You have a warm spirit. It can be something intangible that makes them wonderful or makes them enjoyable to be around. But we just have to build people up, because so many people put on an air and they're still hurting inside.
Yes.
And they're afraid to ask for help. So be it an adult or a kid, we just need to be there for each other and try to encourage and support one another. And especially now, you mentioned the times that we're living in. Isolation is real. I feel fortunate. I have my children. They are a headache sometimes because they are like cats and dogs. but but I look at the people who have nobody, and they don't have kids or they don't have a significant other. And some people are happily single and without child. I don't know what that feels like. I have not had that in a while, but they still need support too. I have friends that fit that group, and they're like, "Come on, let's hang out." I'm like, "No, there's a pandemic." So they are seeking because they are tired too. So make sure we just keep everyone in our hearts and minds and let them know you're enough. And tell yourself, let's not forget, tell yourself you're enough. Because we oftentimes get so caught up in helping others that we don't look in the mirror and say, girl, you look good today.
I love it.
Yes.
We need to, take you with us wherever we go. So for that voice,
yes.
to remind us. That is so good. Thank you, PeTika. I wanted to know, I thought the illustrations were beautiful and so pertinent, right? Especially, to my household and Black households in general, to see young Black boys and young Black girls in books with such a positive, affirming message. I just thought that was really good, because children deal with low self-esteem and confidence issues all the time. But I feel like certain demographics have additional stress and strain on who they are as an individual, just because of how the world may make us feel because of who we are, what color we are. So I just wanted to mention that was really special to me, because while I'm trying to teach my son about kindness and compassion, he also has to learn to be comfortable being Black, because the world can tear you down just for that, and to be secure and be proud to be Black. So,
and I'll tell you, and brilliant as you are, the illustrator, the first set of illustrations, the character was a little lighter than I wanted, because I wanted the boy to be modeled after my son. And so I sent him pictures, and he gave me a rendition. I said, no, my son is darker skinned, and it's very important to me to have his skin tone reflected in the illustration. And so he said, okay. And so he kept darkening the skin, and I said, okay, that's good. And some people are like, well, don't you worry about appealing to all audience? I said, no, I do not, because I want this to represent who we are. And if he's going to look like my son, he needs to have my son's skin tone, because my son needs to know that his skin tone is beautiful and he's brilliant just the way he was made. And so that was important to me, making sure I had children and people of color in the books represented.
And other people need to know. We learn that other people that look different from us are good by what we see. We see other, cultures or, skin colors or what have you in the media, and they tell us that those are good. And so we believe it. And so when white children see a Black child in a book with an affirming message, they are learning that that is good, that that Black child is good because the book is telling them that. So it's important for everybody to get and to read books about people of all skin colors, so that you can learn that there is good in all people. And so I think that that is, you know, such an important message. And I talked to somebody, and not to take this for too long, but I talked to somebody not too long ago about books that are, you know, that we have for Black children with affirming messages, and that we need to focus more on now writing storylines in children's books that just basically just tell a story. So, you know, like there's Harry Potter, you know, we just need regular stories like that. But books that focus on just an affirming message are so important still.
Yes.
Let's have all the books, all the storylines for all children. Everybody needs a story and a message for them and for others.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's very true. Very true. And I'm glad that you mentioned that for others too. I won't say where, but at one of the schools I taught at, it's more of a gifted, and it was a different school than where I started. We'll just put it that way. And one of the things one of the students said to me really resonated, because they had never encountered a teacher like me. And they said, wow, I guess people of color, they didn't use that term, are smart and intelligent too. Look at Miss Tave. And that really hit home. And I said, wow, they need me in schools that are, you know, not the ones serving the inner city, but that's also serving the upper echelon of society, because they need to see that what you have been shown are images of us don't reflect everybody, and that there are a variety of people in every race, in every demographic, and you judge people, really you shouldn't judge people, but you look at people based on who they are, not their skin tone. And so that really, really struck a nerve. And I said, wow. And then I thought, that child must have been taught the other messaging. And so I was happy that I was able to deflect and direct his thought process.
And, you know, taught that messaging, or even by omission of positive messages about other cultures, is teaching them something as well.
Exactly.
So not diversifying, you know, your bookshelf, or not diversifying the messaging and media that are put in front of our children can be harmful as well.
Exactly. So, well said.
Okay. All right. That's okay. You got anything else, PeTika?
That's it. I've enjoyed our conversation. I have enjoyed this experience, and I thank you so much for inviting me to your show.
Yes. Thank you so much. So if you guys are looking for PeTika's books, and I guarantee you, or is that the word I want to use? I'm telling you, you should go look for PeTika's books. Her website is here, BayaBooks.com. It sounds like there are more to come, and I'm excited about that. She's also on IG and Facebook. You can find her there. And again, thank you so much, PeTika, for being here with us tonight. I really appreciate you. We're going to end here. And as Aiden would say, who was upstairs, not making a lot of noise tonight, keep reading, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Good night, everybody.
Thank you so much. Night.